everyone. This podcast is not for kids. So if you're a kid who stumbled upon this podcast, go over to YouTube and watch SciShow Kids, because that's for you. But this podcast is about four friends who get together to amaze each other with astounding facts about the universe and also how we discovered those facts about the universe enough that someone on the podcast will say, "Holy fucking science!" Well done, guys.
I was ready this time.
Yeah.
That was good.
I am Matthew Gaydos. I am a producer here at Complexly, and I work on shows like Animal Wonders and Sexplanations and The Financial Diet. And today I am joined by three friends. We will start off with you in the pink blazer.
Ooh,
who are you?
Plot twist.
Yeah.
It's always
cool
best
shirt.
to introduce people by their attire on an audio program.
Well, now people can have that mind
That's
picture in their
true.
head. They're like, "Oh, I didn't expect a pink blazer, but now I know it's there."
It's
What is that,
important for
theater of the mind?
everyone listening to picture me in a pink blazer.
Oh, they should also know that we're all wearing pink blazers.
Correct.
All of us.
And
It is
Nicole
the
has a
official-
Viking helmet on.
Yes.
Yes.
The official uniform.
Yes.
Live stream, don't tell anyone.
Secret.
Yes.
What am I? Oh, introduction. Yeah.
Yeah, who are you?
Aside from being in a pink blazer, my name is Nicole Sweeney. I am a producer for Crash Course and the host of Crash Course Sociology.
All right. Let's move on down your couch
Cool.
to the gentleman sitting next to you.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Frank. I'm visiting Missoula, and we just wrapped production on Crash Course Study Skills. So
What are you doing on that?
pretty cool. So we're doing a Crash Course series all about how to study, how to be a better student.
No,
how to
but
be
what are
more
you
productive.
doing?
Oh, I'm
yeah.
hosting it, and I wrote it.
And why did you get that job?
I got that job. I guess Hank thought I was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know,
That's how we
he
all
liked
got
my
our
pink
jobs.
blazer, actually.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Yeah, you can be a Crash Course host. You have good taste in blazers." No, I have a site called collegeinfogeek.com. I have a YouTube channel just called Thomas Frank, but it's all about how to be a better student, how to be more productive. And I have a podcast, two podcasts actually. One called the College Info Geek Podcast that is for kids and doesn't swear, and then one called Listen Money Matters that is not for kids, where we do swear and we talk about money.
Awesome.
Nice. Very nice.
I want to take a minute to say I learned a lot from being behind the camera on this series.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that either. I should be doing those things.
That's my experience every week working on The Financial Diet.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, 22 tips to save money. I'm doing 3.
I would say like,
And doing the exact opposite
Yeah.
of 10 more.
Yep.
Yeah. Not only am I not doing these, I'm actually doing the inverse.
Yeah.
22 reasons you're harming yourself financially.
Oh, I nailed that list.
I think the Financial Diet people would agree with me when I say like 1 out of every 2 times I'm writing a script, I feel the exact same way. I'm just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
people should do this, and I should
Yeah.
share this information, but am I doing it?
Yeah, they own up to that sometimes too, where they're like, everyone should do this. I should do this. I don't currently do this, but I should.
I'm going to
Totally,
do it right
totally.
after I
One
publish
day
this
I'm
video.
going to do this.
This is my advice on screenwriting as well. Is like I'll give advice. I'm like saying I think the best way to do
Who are
it.
these dulcet tones coming from?
Dulcet.
Yeah, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, who are you, sir?
I'm Nick Jenkins. I'm a producer here at Complexly. I work on Crash Course and Dear Hank and John. And a lot of times people ask me about making movies, and then I always give them the same advice that I got, but I never take.
Which was?
Which is?
Well, usually like with screenwriting, and they say write from your heart, not from your head, which we talked about today. The idea being that first draft just needs to be an info dump and not a perfect thing.
Yeah.
And I am just horrible at getting caught up in the imperfections and like, oh, I've set this in World War II. Did they have this in World War II? I got to go research this now.
Yeah.
Instead of just sort of writing my story. And but so yeah, it's like the same thing. Like I'm going to give you this information knowing that I only follow about 50% of it, but hopefully some of it will be helpful to you.
Yeah.
So any advice we give you today, we don't actually follow.
This is not an advice
Yeah,
podcast.
whoa.
Oh, wait.
Whoa.
Are we not on the
Whoa.
right podcast? I was just going to dole out all advice to everyone.
Good.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
is going to be fun.
This is Matt's life
advice from
lessons.
people
Welcome.
drinking and cursing.
We're just here to rate each of Matt's life lessons.
Yes.
Yep.
Scale of 5 to 10, please. There's there's no failing grades here on Holy Fucking Science.
Isn't 5 a failing grade?
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, 50%.
Not on my curve. I'm the only one that's taking the test.
Oh, okay.
At Matt University.
Yeah.
Wow, that
It's
really does
fine.
throw off the bell curve, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're just one person. Like,
the
well, they
winner.
got one right, but they were the only person to get that one right.
So
Good
So,
enough.
sounds great to me.
yeah.
I agree.
There's no one
School.
to make you feel bad.
Do it.
Just remember that.
Today's episode of Holy Fucking Science is sponsored by Big Sky Brewing, who gave us these tasty summer honeys that we are all enjoying.
They're really good.
This is really good, actually.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Are
Seasonal
they in
beer.
town?
They are. It's a local one.
Nice.
You can get it elsewhere though. You can get it like nationwide.
I bet I can get it in Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
definitely.
We have
Yeah.
liquor stores that are like the Toys R Us of liquor stores because I'm
Ooh.
from Iowa and I've never seen anything so big.
Yeah, I feel like every day there's like a new brewery that opens up in Missoula, and I'm like, oh, okay. Eventually, everyone will just have their own brewery
Yeah.
that they go to and sit
Literally
alone.
everyone.
Yeah, for a town this small, the breweries per capita.
Yeah.
It's pretty
true.
impressive.
So thanks, Big Sky, for
Yeah.
giving me these tasty beers.
For being the brewery that gives us beer.
Yes, we appreciate
And it's
it.
good.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
it'd be
good-
really bad if a bad brewery gave us free beer. We'd be like, thanks.
Yeah, question mark.
So we're,
We
yes.
did something like that in filming today, didn't we?
Did we?
We're like, thanks.
oh, yeah.
A thought bubble.
There was a thought bubble that was very disturbing. And when
Oh.
we came out of it, Thomas was like, thanks, thought bubble.
Yeah. So we are here today to discuss the topic of memories. And to determine who's going to go first here, I thought it'd be interesting for us to discuss who has the oldest, I guess, youngest, first memory that they have, like a vivid memory from their childhood. Like, what's your first vivid, clear memory, not just a flash? And how old were you when that occurred?
This is inherently unfair because
know
you
it.
picked this prompt, therefore you had time to ruminate on this.
Right, but I don't necessarily want to go first.
Oh, I already know it.
Oh, there we go.
2.5 years old.
Oh.
This is very vivid because I am 1.5 years older than my brother. And our tradition in our family was when you turn 1 year old, you get the whole cake to yourself.
Oh,
That's
okay.
like, that's
Yeah.
that's the tradition, I guess.
It's a
So
great tradition.
when I turned 1 year old, I don't remember this.
Hardy
but
Iowans.
of course, yeah. So that's a nice term. Thank you. Yeah. When I turned 1, I dug into my cake like a ravenous baboon. I don't know why that word came to mind, but I loved it. My brother turns 1, the cake is placed in front of him, and he just immediately starts crying and hates it. And I remember standing there going, like, I think logic was something that was just like burned into my brain very early because I'm like, well, he doesn't want it. I should get it. And I remember my dad being like, no, and holding me back so I couldn't take the cake from my brother while he's just crying and messing it up.
And then you're crying. And then everybody's
And
crying.
I'm crying.
Everybody's
Everyone's
crying.
crying.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to the ground.
Okay, so 2.5.
Yeah, it's pretty early.
2.5 is
That's
the
pretty
earliest
early.
that I can really vividly remember.
I've got mine if you want me to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go ahead.
So I tie you
Okay.
for 2.5. Because I remember standing on the car, or sorry, I was 2.5 years old, standing on the what do you call that? The space between the seats in the car.
The little
Oh, a little
armrest
dash?
thing?
Yeah,
Little
it's not
divider?
the divider. There's a name for it. Center console.
Oh,
thank
thank
you,
you, Stefan.
Thank you, Stefan.
Cars.
Center console.
The center console, watching The Empire Strikes Back at the drive-in.
Oh,
So
that's
and
a
I-
good one.
And
Yeah.
so I remember the asteroid chase, and I remember jumping up and down. And I've had this confirmed by my mother and father, who both say, "No, that was you." Or actually, sorry, my mother and my aunt.
Nice.
And that I was very excited by the asteroid chase in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been to a drive-in movie theater?
Yeah.
They're so cool.
I think I saw a Monster House at a drive-in.
Oh, you know what?
Neat.
I think I did too, actually.
It was just something to do. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like I wasn't dying to see Monster House. I was like, we have to get to the drive-in.
Well,
It
the
was
one
just-
that we had was always like a double header. You pay just to get in, and
Yeah.
we went to see something else, and then Monster House was on. So
Yeah, I
just
think ours was
stayed.
Monster House and that movie about 4 girls who want to kill a guy in high school.
John Tucker Must Die.
That's the one.
Oh, okay.
Good job, Nicole Sweeney. That was on the other screen.
You know, it's an important film of my high school
Yeah.
years.
I feel like my first memory that's super vivid, like as vivid as that, was later. I was like 4. I was like turning 5. And I have flashes from earlier than that, but I think my most vivid one is like my 4th into 5th, my 5th birthday, because we had a race car driver come to my birthday party with his race car. So I have vivid memories of like sitting in the front seat of the car and like my friends all lining up to get into the race car, and like my uncle putting me up on my like his shoulders, and we're walking around the car looking at it, and it's like that is a very, very vivid memory for me of having a cool race car at my birthday party.
It's a sweet memory.
That's a good memory.
Yeah.
It's a good memory.
Yeah.
It's quality. I can see
still
why you
have
would
yet
file
to
that
do
away.
that.
Yeah.
I know. Like, as much as I love cars, I have yet to do that. So that's pretty cool.
We can make that happen for your birthday this year.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you guys take care of it.
You get a whole cake and a race car.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Don't
you,
let me
Nicole?
have a whole cake.
I mean, my family tells a lot of stories, and so it's hard for me to be sure how much of my memories are like, this is a memory, and how much
Right.
of this is like constructed from stories. But there are pieces of this that I'm the only one who was there for. So like, okay, like probably when I was 3, almost 4, it would have been shortly before my little brother was born, because my mom was super pregnant and she was the only adult home. My dad was with my older brother at like basketball practice and is very grateful that he was there, because I was watching my favorite movie, All Dogs Go to Heaven, for the trillionth time. And I decided that I wanted to look like Anne Marie. And so I went into the kitchen and I found some scissors. And I like, my hair was always up in like a little like half up thing on the top of my head. And I just took the scissors and was like chopping at the back of my head, which like could have been really dangerous.
Yeah, there's skin under there.
Didn't draw blood, but was like cutting my hair and like going in, like then I would like run back out. And, like my mom was like on the couch half watching this movie with me, but like also kind of half asleep because she was like 8 months pregnant.
Right.
I was like, "Mommy, don't I look pretty?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, you look pretty." But she couldn't see anything, so it was just the back of my head. And I like did this like 3 times before she realized what was happening, and like freaked out and screamed at me. There's some great pictures of me crying after like crying because she had just screamed at me. But then like my mom realized like, okay, this is a 3-year-old. She doesn't really get what's going on. And then immediately decided to photograph it. So that's who I come from. That's my people. But I do vividly remember being in the kitchen, like getting I know what drawer the scissors were in and like where I was getting them from.
Sure.
So.
The evidence helps though, because I feel like when I was thinking about this, there are memories that I feel like I have because I have home movies of them when I'm like 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like if you asked me about the time I was like playing with my Ghostbusters Firehouse playset, like I have that such a vivid memory, but it's also maybe I just saw the home video of me doing that and like recreated that memory in my head.
Yeah.
So
we moved out of that house when I like maybe 4 months later too. So like there's no other reason that I would know what drawer the scissors were in. That's like my main thing too. The fact that I can still remember that kitchen well enough to know that. I'm like, I think this is a real actual memory, probably.
So I think we're tied then.
Yeah, we have a memory off.
For who has to go first.
You wanted to go first.
I did.
Oh, well then.
Well,
Settled.
that's simple.
Okay.
I was gonna like develop some complicated game for you guys to play to figure out like who should go first, but if somebody said, "Hey, I wanna," you won the game. Congrats, Nick.
We'll have a
That
death
is a
match
good
next
game.
time you're in town. Okay,
That should be at the end of the podcast, though.
that's true.
Don't do a death match
Would
at the
kind of
beginning.
You don't want to
Yeah.
have just like a dead guy sitting on the couch for the whole
Well,
podcast?
we need his fact first of all.
Yeah,
Whichever one
that
of
is
you
true.
It is.
It would
That's
need to be
true.
like
We'll
the holy
pry
fucking
the
science
notebook
of.
from his cold dead hands.
Yeah,
You're not going to
the
understand my
topic
notes.
is Weekend at Bernie's this week.
We'll remember the sunglasses. There's probably some sitting back here.
Yeah.
Okay, will kill me later.
What do you got? That's a good sentence. Will kill me later.
We can.
Beautiful.
All right, I'm going to open with a question.
Ooh, good.
And I want each of you to think about this and answer. What is the largest hard drive in terms of storage space you have access to? Mine is a 5 terabyte work drive.
Yeah, same.
Mine's like
same
3
one.
I was thinking
Terabyte.
Thomas might have.
I have access to Amazon EC2, so infinite drives. But are you saying what's the largest hard drive that I own?
Well, no, I mean, theoretically it's infinite. They don't put any sort of limitation on you.
I've got Amazon Cloud. I've got a Backblaze account that has unlimited.
Okay, but those are going to
storage.
separate hard drives in reality.
So the largest.
Like,
I don't
largest
know how
physical drive.
large they make them, but I remember I have a 4 terabyte drive in my computer.
Okay.
And I'm pretty certain I've seen 10 terabyte drives on Newegg. So assuming that they are reliable, I would assume that Amazon uses them at least for the glacial tier.
Okay.
So
All right.
probably 10 terabytes is my guess, but who knows?
Yeah, if she's got a 3 terabyte at home. Yeah.
You do?
You do?
Yeah, I think I use a 3 terabyte.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're into the 3 to 10 terabytes, somewhere in there for all of us. That's actually pretty good. I remember when I bought my first hard drive, external hard drive, it was 250 megs.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I'll never fill that up. And then I went to film school. I was like, that's not even half a project.
Yep.
Okay, so at Harvard, scientists have successfully stored data in DNA.
I've heard about this.
5.5 petabytes, which is about 700 terabytes
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's a lot.
in 1 gram of DNA.
Holy fucking science.
Yeah.
You got it already.
That's so
What?
many.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah.
What?
1 gram of DNA, 700 terabytes.
Why don't I remember more stuff?
Well, to be clear, this is synthesized DNA. It's not actual. It's synthesized human DNA, but it is not, like sampled from someone.
Right.
So if we do the math, the nearest I could find, I went to a bunch of different places to find how many grams of DNA there are in our bodies. And you can't be completely 100% accurate because everybody's different and blah, blah, blah. But I kept coming back to the number 300 to 350, like somewhere in there is where it says. So I split the difference in 326. That is 228,200 terabytes.
I will be the repository for all human knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
that is a huge amount of data. So that means our body has the potential. Now, obviously, that wouldn't work because the way human cells work, we
You need them for
Yeah.
other
They got
information.
jobs to do.
There's other information there that's kind of necessary right now.
Yeah, but
I don't want them distracted.
But have you ever
what
seen
would
Johnny
you give
Mnemonic?
up? That's what I thought.
I'm just imagining them like injecting some extra DNA in his head, and that's how he's the information carrier.
Absolutely, I thought immediately of a screenplay. I was like, okay, we can.
And I like Matt's question about what you'd give up. Like, what kind of like trade off? Like, how much knowledge?
Would you give up
can
your
I-
sense of smell if you could remember the line to every book you've ever read?
Nah, I wouldn't give up anything.
Yes.
I'd give up the sense of
fuck my
taste.
sense of smell.
I'd give up sense of taste.
About that one.
You give up taste?
Yeah,
Whatever.
because then I could eat
your sense of
super
smell,
healthy
you basically
stuff.
can't taste.
Oh, that's true. So you could just start with smell.
I like food.
And
I'm
then
sorry.
get like
I
all
love
movies
food,
as well.
But also,
No, I love
think about
food.
how easy it would be to eat well if taste were no longer a factor.
That's true.
That's
you
my
like
thing.
literally just look at the thing that's the healthiest with the most like nutrients and all
Soylent
that. Just
all the
wonder about
time.
that. Just get an IV of Soylent and just pump it in.
I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know. I still wouldn't give it up.
But we look at that human now and we're like, that's a lot of storage. But in
No,
100
you know
years,
what?
we're going to fill up that human real
right?
quick.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Something I'm going to reference in my study that I won't give away too much of right now, but I believe in making things a little bit difficult, and I wouldn't give up my sense of taste because I don't want to make it that easy to just not. I don't know.
Says the very fit man. That's a bitter pill to swallow coming from you.
Well, it won't be bitter once you get rid of the taste. Yeah.
That is true. It won't be bitter at all.
I think that I would not want to make guitar playing easier because there is a level to having the accomplishment of learning something.
Yeah.
But in things that I struggle with on a health level, I feel like it would be good if I could find workarounds for that.
I can see that, I
In
suppose.
general, there's a lot of physicality that I would give up to be smarter. Like, that's like that, just like in general, that trade-off to me is very like, that's fine.
I mean, we're also speaking as 4 very privileged,
Yeah.
able-bodied people.
Absolutely.
Like,
That means I have a lot I can sacrifice. It's fine.
we have that option.
But
Not a
yes.
part of this same study. At least I don't think it was part of the same study. But at the same time, they managed to store an entire image sequence in DNA, which was Edward Muybridge's Running Horse. They managed to do that, put it in there, and then decode it back out.
Okay.
So we're getting to some interesting places. So especially with synthesized DNA, I mean, it's also what they call volumetric. So it's not like on a disk, it's planar. So it's all in basically, we've got this plane to store everything in. Whereas with DNA, it's what's your volume that you have to store it in.
Now I forget with DNA, I know that like there's 4 different proteins and they're always in pairs, right?
Yes.
And there's like 2 that are always together and then the other 2 are always together. So is it basically just like and I forget the names entirely. Is it like the first pair is a 0 and the other pair is a 1, and they just kind of synthesize those protein pairs to represent binary data?
I specifically went to research that, and then my brain went, ha ha ha, you fool. And
that's too much.
You're not going to retain that.
Well, it looks like we need to inject
there was
some
an image,
DNA into you so you retain it.
There was an image that they published with the report that showed how it's decoded, because basically they put what they called an address at the top of the sequence, which was binary, that linked to the, I think it's TGCA. I can't remember how the DNA works out, but
yeah.
And in there, they basically, the code that they had up here allowed them to translate everything else. It just works like a codec.
Okay.
But it's still, so that means you can put any amount of information in there that'll fit, and then you just need that one bar to decode it all.
Yeah.
At least that's how I understood it. So I'm not a geneticist, so that's my best explanation.
Okay.
But I'm still in awe of how much data you can fit in a gram of DNA.
That's awesome. Also, this reminds me, has anybody ever watched Cowboy Bebop?
No.
At all?
No, but I hear there's a cute corgi in it.
There is a cute corgi in it, and he's like this data dog who has a bunch of data inside of him, and this is reminding me of that. And I'm like, Nick's dog, we could put a bunch of data in your
Oh
dog.
man.
I figure out how many
That'll
grams
be your
of
hard
DNA
drive.
are in a corgi.
No, she's too smart already.
Yeah, I feel like that would be bad in the long run.
I just want to take this information and turn my finger into like or more apropos, my thumb into a thumb drive.
Ooh, nice.
So I could just go into the
It's
computer.
like RoboCop.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want all that responsibility of RoboCop, but I just wanted the data
I want
downloaded.
that
you
cool knife
Something
thing.
simple. You want
Yeah.
something like low profile so that nobody like turns to you and expects you to
No,
be
no, 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 no,
something.
no, no. I want to like on the download just be like
discreet.
flip, plug in. All right, got the movie, good to go. Yeah.
Cool, yeah. I downloaded a movie.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I'm looking to use my
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, if you think about it, if we
thumb
change
for.
the way the interface starts working and we can interface basically with the cells in our bodies, if we're carrying things, you could store a movie and just have it
in your
Play it on your eye or in your
sitting
brain, in your visual cortex.
Nobody
bored,
knows
nobody
anymore if
knows
you're actually paying
You're just
attention.
sitting
Don't
there
know.
watching a movie.
Well, yeah, that's true. Especially if you haven't seen
Why
the
are
movie
Nicole's
before.
eyes always glazed over?
You're just in a meeting, and at one point you go, "What?" And they're like, "Don't do it!" Just crying. Sorry. Such a beautiful meeting.
So emotional.
So we really we hit the peak of like how great that would be, and then really like derailed it into
All
like
the way
how
back down.
terrible we could like ruin this amazing technology.
Yep.
That's what we do here on Holy Fucking Science.
We're here to represent why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. I don't know if this is nice. I don't know.
Well, like it could be. People could use it to do cool things, but then there's assholes
us.
like us
Yeah.
who are like, yeah, I'm gonna watch movies and meetings.
But like imagine
Immediately.
you had, I don't know, like a special kind of moss that it was stored all this data, but also had the benefits of plants or something. Like you could go real far-flung sci-fi with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about DNA outside of
Yeah.
our own human forms.
Holy
Yeah, we don't have to-
people.
Yeah.
No, it's just like plants. I went to the botanical gardens in my city the other day, and they have like this living roof on top of one of the buildings, which is like all kinds of plants. And they were talking about how it's so good for the city. It helps to keep the city cooler and does all these great things. And I was like, man, I wish every city building was like that.
And then if you could also
And then-
store things inside of it,
So like every city building is like a bunch of trees that are also a hard drive.
Oh man.
the future.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's going to be it. The last piece of information here that I'll close on is it used to take, so it wants to, there are 3 billion DNA pairs in, I think, the human genome.
Okay.
And it took years to decode that.
Yeah.
The technology they're working with at Harvard now can do that in a matter of hours.
Wow.
So everything is advancing.
Yeah.
They call it, so there's exponential. Yeah, it's at an exponential rate. So it's really, it's just, it's too much info.
Holy
Got the whole
fucking
Moore's Law going on.
science.
Holy fucking
That brings us
science.
to you,
Yeah.
All right.
Have fun.
I want to talk to you guys about the brains of dead nuns.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
How did you know my next album name?
Okay.
Available this fall on
I would buy
DFTBA
that. That's a
Records.
great album.
So we did an episode on exercise that I wrote and we filmed today. And I'm really fascinated with like the benefits of exercise. I read a book written by a guy named Dr. John Rady a while ago. It's called Spark, for anybody who's curious about all these benefits. And one of the things he talks about is like people who exercise and they stay active into old age stave off dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. So, but we still don't know a lot about what causes it, all the risk factors, all these things. But one of the things that is helping us get a better understanding of what causes Alzheimer's is what's called the Nun Study. And this is a study that's happening with 678 American nuns. They're at the School Sisters of Notre Dame congregation. And I think this is all over the country, so not anywhere in particular. But there's this story about this woman named Sister Mary. And in 1991, she was 100 years old. So the guy who's running this study, I think his name is David Snowden. He's asking her to remember a list of words, like draw geometric shapes, all these mental cognitive tests. And as she's doing them, she does them great. And she's talking, she's laughing, she's engaged, she's attentive. And then 2 years later, she dies. So they examine her brain and they're thinking, well, this is going to be a healthy brain because of what we saw her do. And it wasn't. Her brain actually was riddled with these like protein knots that are indicative of like horrible Alzheimer's disease. And yet she was perfectly mentally attentive and all these things. So what they discovered is her brain is essentially like had rewired itself to be able to do the things that she had kept doing throughout her life, even though it had been decaying and getting dementia.
Wow.
So that is just like, and I think in the book he talks about this and he talks about like, this is why it's important to stay active, to keep learning, to keep exercising, to just use your brain in old age. Because if you don't, then it never gets a chance to rewire itself and use this neuroplasticity. It just kind of fades away. And they did a lot of the stuff here. So one of the cool things they found is when these nuns basically like became members of the convent, they would write these personal essays. So they analyzed all these essays across like the almost 700 nuns, and they found that like some of these essays had a lack of what they called linguistic density, complexity, fluidity, all that kind of stuff, and some didn't. And that was actually highly correlated with Alzheimer's. So 80% of the nuns whose writing was measured as lacking got Alzheimer's. And only 10% of the nuns that did not have the lacking, had like good essays, only 10% got the disease.
80%?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So, I mean, it's hard to say like exactly what that means, but it could indicate, okay, if you're maybe not such a deliberate thinker now, then you won't be the rest of your life. Or it could mean something else. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say, but it's an interesting finding to me. It's not nearly as cool as storing things in DNA. So I don't know if we're going to get a holy fucking science out of this, but I wanted to talk about it.
I think it's like in my head currently like, holy fucking science.
Yeah, yeah, that's a slow burn. Holy fucking science,
yeah,
if you will.
Yeah, I'm interestingly, because I actually switched topics very last minute, as I was originally going to do one on muscle memory.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't find enough to make it sort of holy fucking scienceable. So, but there was an interesting thing that is reminiscent of what you're talking about with, I was reading an article about piano players. And the main thing I was finding was that there's a difference between muscle memory and motor, some sort of motor reflex memory, that muscles don't have memory. It's the name itself is bad.
Yeah, it's ingrained neural patterns that they get stronger and stronger with repeated use.
Right, and with piano players, they were finding that their neural pathways had been remapped because they had to be in order to have like distinct control over every finger and everything. Like it's really amazing, and that there was a major difference between professional and amateur.
Okay.
Like it was like the amount of rewiring that had to happen in the brain to do something professionally versus.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me because it sounds like a similar thing. Like she was doing these things all the time, every day, talking, and her brain just was like, well, that's not working anymore, but I got to keep doing it. So I'm just going to rewire myself.
Yeah. It worked around the like terrible things that were happening to her brain.
Right.
Yeah.
In order to continue doing these things.
Exactly.
Which is amazing.
Totally fucking science. Like that is
holy fucking science.
That it's not as an immediate like this many numbers. It's just it's a thing that you have to stew on and go. It sort of flies in the face of what you think of as the human body.
Yeah, and some interesting context about her. She taught full time until she was 77 years old. Then taught part time, taught math part time until she was 84. And even after that, she stayed at the convent and taught lessons and stayed active and helped people out and basically worked until the day she died.
Wow.
So I'm like a use it or lose it advocate, and this is like a perfect example of that. Also, to your point about the piano players, I think they've done studies on cab drivers, like full-time professional cab drivers, and they find like there are those ingrained neural patterns and rewiring, so they know the city's map perfectly. And then you know who Glen Campbell is, right?
Yeah.
So do you guys know who Glen Campbell is? He's like a really famous country, kind of rock singer as well. Mostly country, though.
Mostly country. I mean,
he's like 83 now.
Yeah.
He has horrible Alzheimer's. He doesn't know that he has an album out right now that just came out. Like, terrible. There's a documentary about him. But when he gets up on stage, he can play and sing, like, perfectly. Now, he'll forget that he's up there sometimes, and he'll forget that he was supposed to do a song. But once he gets into it, like, he knows how to play it. He knows how to sing it. So those neural patterns that are used really often are much hardier and resistant to that decay.
Wow.
That story earns you a bonus holy fucking sentence.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Glen Campbell did Gentle on My Mind, which is a great.
Yeah, I'm pretty, like, once you guys started talking about him, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm pretty sure I know who you guys are talking about.
Gentle on My Mind, great, beautiful
story.
song. If you ever get the chance, it's really wonderful. Very much a sort of almost a hobo song. But it's really cool.
The idea that use it or lose it is like something that you hear and people talk about, like, oh, the people who like just decide that I'm just going to stay at home and do nothing when I turn 70 and like that can. Well, Nick, I have some bad news for you.
Look, I'm not going to make it much past 70, so if I get a few years of just chilling and relaxing,
maxing all cool,
just playing some b-ball outside my school, I'll be happy with that.
Until a couple of guys who are up to no good.
We all know the song.
Little fight. My mom got scared.
It's like the one rap song I know all the words to.
The problem is, Nick, the full version has other verses.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You gotta learn those ones.
They're not in the TV opening.
Yeah. And so if you don't know those ones, you got to learn them now and keep learning them so you don't forget them when you're 75.
It's very important. It's very important.
That'll be important to teach your grandkids.
Indeed.
About this archaic TV show.
To show them how culturally relevant you are.
Yes. Let me dust off my DVDs of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, children.
This here is a laser
cool when I was a kid. Where's my Betamax player?
Yeah, I regressed somehow in my generations. It's like, I actually own an Atari and a Betamax. I don't know where these came from.
Atari no, Game Boy was the first system I ever played, but Atari was close because my aunt had one.
I played an Atari.
Did you?
But I did not own one.
Yeah, I never owned one.
We owned a Sega Master System. That was the first one we owned.
They're apparently re-releasing a new Atari, so you guys have another chance to play.
Yeah,
like a remix.
I have no idea. I just read a headline and didn't read the article.
So I think Atari's trying to horn in on the space that Xbox has left.
Good luck.
Well,
Nicole?
What space is that? Making a system with no games?
I realize we're falling into a holy fucking video game segment.
Yeah.
So we're going to move back to holy fucking memories.
You know what? I'll tell you outside the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll bash Microsoft. I got in trouble for bashing the Prius. So I'm not going to bash Microsoft about their stupid video game system.
To be clear, you got in trouble for setting up something that you just did not deliver on. You set up evidence that was going to really show me why the Prius was garbage, and I never got that. I never got that convincing argument.
He also
the takedown.
just doubled down on it while lumping in Microsoft.
My issue wasn't concerns for the Prius. It was a promised takedown of the Prius.
We're going to have a
never
sub-podcast.
The views of Nicholas Jenkins do not reflect the views of Holy Fucking Science and the other panelists.
I'm here for Nick's Rant of the Week mini pod.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a Patreon exclusive.
Let me tell you about shoelaces.
Right? As much as we need to move on, I do want to hear about shoelaces. But Nicole, it is your turn.
Yeah.
Try not to think about shoelaces.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, maybe it's possible one day for science to use light to make me forget about shoelaces.
Are you talking Men in Black shit?
So my holy fucking science is really all in the headline. It's it's like less cool once you actually explain it, which I only kind of know how to do because there's a lot of like complicated brain words that I don't really know. But basically, scientists used light to make mice remember things and forget things.
I have a question.
Yes.
Remember things that they did or did not experience.
That they experienced. It's actually
Okay.
it's a little bit messed up. So what they did was they...
Animal testing was messed up?
Yeah.
Do tell.
Yeah. So they took some mice and they... there was like a tone that the mice heard, and then they shocked them. It was apparently a mild shock. But yeah, they like shocked the mice.
Only mild.
And then
It's only going to mildly punch you in the face.
divided. Then there were 3 groups. One of them, I guess I should explain the thing that they did. One of them got the thing that they were testing done to them. One group got a like messed up version of the thing they were testing. That group really, real sad for that group of mice. And then the last group was the control group who just experienced that and nothing else. And then like the next day, or after, I don't really know how like mice day cycles work, but after the mice slept and woke up again, they did this while the mice were sleeping. Sorry, this is the like important bit. The intervention happened while the mice were sleeping. And then when the mice woke up, they played the noise again to like sort of like trigger their reactions. But of the mice who were deliberately being goaded into memory, they spent like 40% of the time, even regardless of the tone, being afraid. Like they were just afraid because they had such an intense memory of the shock that that like they didn't even need the tone as a trigger to experience fear. The thing that they did has to do...
I'm going to fucking cry by the end of this.
Get ready for mine then as well, Mick. We're about to double down.
Descending into the darkness today.
We promised it from the beginning.
Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to try real hard to explain this. During slow wave sleep, neurons generate brainwaves in there's 3 rhythms. There's slow oscillations, there's spindles, and ripples. And the spindles are the thing that they focused on because there's like other reasons that they believe that those are important for memory. They like after a day of like really heavy learning, like there's more of that in your sleep, and like there's a decline in those in the elderly and in patients with schizophrenia, and so that was like the thing that they triggered. So in the mice that experienced in group 1, they did that sort of like that rhythm. They went through that rhythm of like the slow oscillations and the spindles and the ripples, adding like more spindles to help them remember. The second group that got super messed with, they like did that sort of out of sync and like messed with their sleep. So fun. And then the last group, had nothing. But they also found, so less sad, that they could reduce the number of spindles and make them forget things as well.
Okay.
The opposite was also true. But yeah, so they assume that this whole process of the oscillations and the spindles and the ripples is like your brain communicating, like different parts of your brain communicating, and that like that part of sleep is where memory consolidation happens.
Okay.
So
did they do this through like phonic stimulation, like flashing lights at a certain frequency?
Artificially modulating brainwaves with optogenics, so manipulating the neurons with light. I don't actually know what that means.
Holy fucking science. We're talking Men in Black here. We're talking
it is kind of Men in Black.
It's a bright light that makes you forget shit.
I'll give you a holy fucking science on that.
This might also be, we don't have the same thing, but this might be the closest 2 things have been on holy fucking science.
All right, segue.
And I think I'm going to bring mine up now so that we can talk about both of ours because they are so similar and almost the exact same thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same set of researchers.
It's not. Just, the same set of researchers, because you both sent me a thing.
Okay. We have just been informed that it is not the same set of researchers, so it is 2 independent research studies going on.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah, thanks for the help, Caitlin Hofmeister. This one is about implanting false memories.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Into the mind.
To answer
Hey, they
Nick's
could be good memories,
earlier
Nick.
question.
That's why I was
man.
like, I have to stop it before we go down that rabbit hole because,
We're going full Men in Black.
Yep.
It could be memories of just like eating lots of cheese.
Well, no, I mean, of course you could do something good.
Running
wasn't.
on wheels.
It wasn't, though. It
Of
wasn't.
course
alert.
it wasn't.
So,
It's cats.
here's what happened. It's similar. They used the optogenetics and lasers and lights to the brain, as well as shocking. So similar animal testing here. Sorry, Nick. So this was Steve Ramirez and his partner. I'm going to pronounce his name incorrectly, but it's Shu Leu, I believe. They were at MIT, and the study involved they put a mouse in a metal box that has a black plastic floor, and then when they put this mouse in the box, it immediately froze in terror, more rigid than they even thought it would, because he remembered receiving a foot shock in that same box. The problem is, this mouse had never been shocked while in that box.
Oh.
Whoa.
So they were able to implant that memory?
How do they know that that is what the mice was thinking?
Well, here we
Did
go.
they interview the mouse?
Yes.
Squeak, squeak.
Yes, we're going to get to an audio clip now of the interview with the mouse.
Gronk from...
Yes, exactly.
Kronk is one of my favorite characters in any
Gronk,
movie
sorry,
ever.
yeah.
So what they did was identify the brain cells that are involved in encoding individual memories by finding the cells that are active during these certain events. Mm-hmm. And they learned to manipulate them to create the new memory. So they find the brain cells that are active during the being shocked, and they trick those cells into responding to pulses of light. And they nicely said trick, but upon further research meant genetically engineer these mice to have brains that would respond to this light. And then they are essentially reactivating that memory by hitting the same area of the brain with a laser.
So when you say reactivating, the memory is there from birth?
That's what they did first in this study, was they found they had mice that they would shock, and then later on put that memory back into their head artificially, and they would like immediately remember that moment and then have that same fear reaction to when they were previously shocked.
Were they able to get rid of the memory first then?
No, it was just like putting them in that sense of like if you're on a stage speaking in front of 500 people, and then you have that, you go to do it again, but you have that fear from the first time you did it. It's putting that sense of fear of the similar situation back into them.
Okay, so it's not a specific memory.
Well, then there's a second part.
Oh, okay.
The way they implanted the false memory was they put a mouse into the safe non-shock box one day, and then just had it go in there, and nothing happened. Just hang out in a box. And the next day, they put it into a different box. Different shape, different color, different size, different sense. Like, there's no reason the mouse should think these two boxes are the same thing. And they triggered the mouse's memory from the first box, of the safe box. And as they did that, they shocked it at the same time.
So they used a real event to associate the first box with a new pain response.
So they made it essentially, they put it in the new box, made it think it was in the old box, and then shocked it at the same time they did that.
Okay, so now it associates this pain with their memory of the old box rather than the new environment.
So
People have too much time on their hands.
So they took it the next day and put it back into the first safe box, and it immediately froze in fear, thinking it was about to get shocked.
Okay.
And so they essentially, Nick is not happy.
See, my thinking is just like, this dude put me in a box yesterday and shocked me. It's probably going to happen again. Even if the box looks different.
They said that they tested enough mice that they found like that the part of the brain that's being triggered is saying that this is a response to this specific scenario they are in.
Okay.
And they would try it with other boxes that were not the one triggered in the memory, and they did not have the fear response.
Okay.
Wow.
So they think they are in the box that's going to shock them.
Gotcha.
Even though that box has never shocked them.
Huh.
But yeah, so
Holy
similar,
fucking science.
huh?
Holy fucking science.
Yeah, I was going to say, first off,
of
holy
all,
fuck.
Yeah.
Science.
Number one, holy fucking science.
So, but they brought up in this study like the science fiction like examples of this happening in movies that we watch, and we're like, oh yeah, that's Eternal Sunshine of like removing memories, or Total Recall implanting false memories, and.
Have you seen Ghost in the Shell at all?
No.
Like the original one? Oh, actually, this happens in the Scarlett Johansson movie as well. There's like just a minor character who thinks he has a wife and thinks he has kids, and ends up like going and doing all these crimes because they call it ghost hacked, but it essentially has its consciousness hacked and false memories are implanted.
It's Dark
She's
City
like-
as well.
And what?
Dark City.
Yeah. It's just this terrifying thing.
Yeah, Dark City. Never seen Dark City?
I've never even heard of it.
Oh, you should see Dark City.
Okay.
But it's
real
so
good.
like they the positive spin on it, they look at it as being able to implant memories in people with Alzheimer's who can don't remember their children or their families, and then.
Or also in this case, being able to erase like traumatic memories as well.
That's
like
the
PTSD
stuff. War or something.
Yeah, you could remove a war from someone's brain. At obviously much further beyond these studies.
But again, as like we're talking about here, the technology increases so quickly that who knows how far away we actually are from something like that.
Yeah.
So I wow, like that's freaky.
Backing up a bit to the how they could even the fine-grained. One of the things that in this study that they were talking about as far as how they knew to do that in the first place is that when there are a bunch of other studies about how learning something shortly before you go to sleep helps things get moved over to long-term memory, and it's basically what's happening is the particular specific pattern of the neurons firing in your brain as you learn the thing. If that pattern is repeated during this particular phase of sleep, that is when your brain is then shuffling that over to long-term memory. And so that
makes sense.
With that, I could see how, again, with my very basic surface level understanding of about how all this works, I sort of get how actual scientists with their actual knowledge could deduce this is the specific neuron pattern that we're trying to make happen in these mice, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't.
And also
I mean, I don't know. You could have. I mean, if we go full on sci-fi, I think the idea of having a memory implanted of actually reaching the summit of Everest, and that's
optional,
the total recall.
You get a menu of the memories that you could get implanted.
It's the
into
total
your head.
recall. It's totally total recall, which I don't think in and of itself is not a bad idea, but the ways you can mess with that and make it something truly horrible, which is what will happen.
Yep.
Yeah, there was also a quote in the article that I was reading that was talking about how memories essentially make people who they are. Your sense of self comes from your memories, and it's once we have the ability to alter those at will, it gets into a lot of ethically gray areas there.
Yes.
Well, it's the same with genetic programming from birth, where it's there are a lot of problems with it. But I also have the real sympathy for people that have a trauma that they can't get over in one way or another, whatever that may be. And so the idea of having that opportunity, I think, is fascinating, and I would hate to rule it out. As I would hate to be the person to say, no, stop doing that, because I think there is some real good to be done there. But I also think, the idea of erasing memories that you didn't want to be erased and then they're just gone, I think is also.
But I mean, this is like anything else that we already have access to. We have regulations on it.
You talking about shock therapy and stuff? Or
I'm talking about guns exist. And we use them for certain good things, and they could be used for certain bad things. And I mean, they often are, but it doesn't mean you never should invent them.
Right. So you're saying the people who invent this thing, this practice, they aren't going into it with nefarious things in
you could
mind.
Obviously use it for nefarious purposes,
yes.
But there are obviously benefits to it as well. So as long as you can find a way to regulate that, I mean, it seems a little more heavy because
tricky conversation.
Yeah.
It is.
Plus just the weaponizing of minds.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the
weaponizing of mind control.
The weaponizing of a weapon is something that I don't think is analogous to this.
Yeah.
So, if you have something, what is it built to do? It's built to kill people. Oh my God, somebody killed people with it?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
But this is, to be fair though, this is the thing, it's made to erase memories.
Yes.
And so choosing which memories are okay to erase and which ones are not okay to erase.
Right.
But it is inherently
area.
more it is ethically fraught in a different way.
Oh,
because
yes,
it is
absolutely.
not embedded with. It doesn't come prepackaged with, again, a gun. Endgame is kill things.
Or nuclear bomb.
Or, yes.
Like initially that job was like, no, we need to figure out how to make this bomb work before they figure out how to make this bomb work.
You could take that a step back to nuclear technology in general. You can use that for energy, or you can use that as a bomb. There's two different applications.
Right.
And the same thing with any sort of brain manipulation. There's good applications and bad applications.
Right. Or pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
You know, there are, but I guess I start to get worried about the whole, what could you do to someone?
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to what would somebody wish to be done to themselves?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that really, is upsetting.
Yeah.
I remember reading some of the stuff about like potentially altering people's perceptions of time. So like in a justice system, you could be like, oh, we're going to have you in a room for 1 day, but you're going to perceive it as 100 years. Like that is the scariest thing to me.
Which also, like, you brought up regulations. When you're dealing with, like, messing with people's brains, that is very, very cold comfort. Because
it's true.
He who controls the ability to manipulate everybody's brains also controls the ability to justify whatever, manner of regulate. Like, if we're going to go down this sci-fi rabbit hole.
I 100% agree with you.
I don't find that especially comforting.
Of course you do. There's been coded messages throughout this entire podcast to make sure that you agree with me.
Shining lasers in your eyes.
Yeah.
Why do you think I asked you to sit on this couch?
Yeah, these are not normal Kino flows.
Wouldn't you like a Pepsi?
We went down a really dark hole here towards the end.
We did.
I'd like to maybe lift it up before we wrap this up. So I feel like maybe if some of us have another early fun childhood memory we can share. Let's share those real quick to go out on a fun
children's stories to make you forget the dark dystopia we just took you to here on Holy Fucking
What dark
Science.
dystopia? I don't remember it at all. Well,
just plug me in, man. Good to go into the Matrix.
Yeah.
All of my
I won't
early
cause
fun
any
childhood
problems.
memories have been deleted.
Oh no!
Scientists.
I remember
Sorry,
only
Matt.
the trauma.
I'm trying to my really early childhood memories are somewhat traumatic. Not like really traumatic, but like some kid at my daycare biting me, or my dad not letting me eat my brother's cake.
Yeah.
I think my early preschool daycare days has led to my current distaste of public restrooms because when I was 3 or 4.
I don't even know what this podcast is anymore.
It's whatever I want it to be. Hank's not here. We're running the show.
The not Hank-shaped Hank is power mad.
I can't talk about my distaste of public restrooms on this forum.
I'm right with you. Go for it, man.
Go ahead.
I'll try to think of my worst restroom memory. Hold on.
That is not what I asked for.
Next week.
No, I'll get there.
restroom
I'll get
memory.
there.
Part 2 of this podcast. All number 2. But mine
I
was
have
just
more nightmares about bad restrooms than any other nightmare of disgusting, awful train spotting style.
no.
Restrooms.
The moment you said train spotting style, images in my head.
Yeah.
Step into my
yeah.
laser chamber, I can take care of it.
I would love for that to happen. So
Luckily,
we
mine is
found
not that traumatic.
Okay.
It's just the idea of in preschool, we had a very large bathroom that was just 10 toilets with no walls or anything because they had to monitor what 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds are doing. They don't want them messing around.
drowning.
That's probably it. But so it's just
I'm laughing, but it's
one
horrible.
long
It's so lighthearted.
one long hallway room of 10 toilets and all kids using them at the same time. And even then, I was like, this is gross. And so
Don't
now,
join the military then.
yeah, but even now, being in a public restroom, I flash back to nope, too close to other people right now.
Yeah. I'm really happy that we have individual restrooms here.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Our old building was not the case.
Nope.
And I hated it.
Our old building had a lot of flaws.
That's true. We could do a whole podcast on it.
Does anyone else have any fun childhood
Nick's
memories
rant of the week,
that haven't been deleted
Yes,
yet?
tune in to Nick's rant of the week.
in which he laments a bathroom from a year and a half
Oh man,
ago.
I could do a whole podcast on bad bathrooms. I could do it. I swear.
That's on the weekly rant with Nick.
Yeah.
Episode 2, bad.
Project for Awesome Perk.
I got a title for you. Nick's Johns.
I don't know if most people would know what that meant.
Probably not, but I like it.
I know what you meant.
I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but
No, your mart is just a toilet.
I feel like
Hey, that is
a
art.
lot of people would take a different meaning from that. So
Yeah.
I know, that's why I think it's great.
You can have 2 segments. Well, thanks for listening to Holy Fucking Science this week. I have been Matthew Gaydos, joined by...
I have been Nick Jenkins.
Nicole Sweeney.
And I've been Thomas Frank.
And this has been...
Holy
Fucking Science.